Hello and welcome to the video. This video is about these things here. These are the X-Flip FPV goggles. Like all the shiny stuff at the front, I'm not sure I'm convinced. Now this is an interesting one because I only try and get stuff in that I like the look of, that seems to pass some kind of basic tests. And I've seen a number of other channels get into these goggles. Quite a few have been really rave about them, and there's been a couple, like Bruce and others, that have been quite negative. Now, that big disparity between reviews is usually, in my humble opinion, a danger sign. Any review that people do is subject to their own particular feelings about how they fly and what's important to them. So, for example, if I'm reviewing a plane that's really good at acrobatics but not very stable, that's not my bag. So I might not give that as rave a review as another reviewer who flies like that all the time and isn't interested about FPV longer flights. Similarly with these goggles, every different pilot has a different set of requirements. But that doesn't really explain why there is this big disparity with these goggles, with some channels doing the usual fat shark killer kind of presentation and other channels really not being happy with them at all. Unfortunately, I am definitely in the I'm not happy with them at all camp, and I don't think this one is reviewer's curse. The optics are nice and clear on mine. But I just can't get them to work properly. And what I mean by that is not that, can I get the module to power up? Yeah, I can. Can I get it all displaying? Yeah, I can. Can I operate the diopter support and the focus? Yeah, I can. The problem is whenever I put them on, I can't get both of the screens to line up so that my eyes are fooled into thinking that they're looking at one large image a bit further away. But let me go through the specs and kind of show you what I found with this and show what it's like unboxing. I'll put a link down below if you want to go and have a look at them, because unfortunately they also don't come with any modules, obviously no antennas either, and not even a battery. But from some of the reviews that you've seen, you'd think that these were absolutely red hot. So while I unbox these things, let me go through some of the specs. Now these are Sony 1024x768 OLED screens inside these, which is a very good start. And the way that it's packaged is pretty nice too, even though on the package it shows a battery that you don't get. The case itself is actually really nice feel. So as I open it, let me kind of run through some of the other things. So it's got an integrated diopter, which is +7 to -7, which should support the vast majority of people. And that's independent for each eye. IPD range is a nice range as well. It's 58 to 72. Now you can see here, this was my first sign that this wasn't going to be a good review. A little piece of plastic fell out of the goggles, and it took me a long time to try and figure out where it had come from, and as of yet I still haven't found out. But that's really worrying, that the first thing you do when you pick your new goggles up out the case is there's something rattling around, and when you rattle it enough, a little bit of plastic, looks like a catch, falls off. Field of view on these is said to be 42 degrees. However, because I've struggled to even use these, I'm really not able to speak to how nice the screens and field of view is. What I can speak to is how cheap the plastics feel and how badly aligned all the different pieces are on this thing. It has got these two receiver bays, both right and left, and unfortunately they don't, although they take standard modules, those modules don't operate from the nicely labelled switches at the top. Lenses themselves look like most of the modern lenses that you're getting in modern goggles, and on the top all the controls are beautifully labelled. That is one thing I really like. I'm not a fan of goggles that just don't bother screen printing what they actually do. Each of the module bays can support up to 650 milliamps at 5 volts, and that should support almost every module out there. Now, of course, because I can't actually focus on the two screens and make it look like one screen with my eyes. No matter what I do with the IPD and what I do with the focus, it almost feels like one of the screens is out of alignment. It's difficult for me to give you my impressions of what they're like to use, but I can talk about everything else apart from that. But then that's such a big part of the goggle, kind of tricky, right? 42-degree field of view, Sony OLEDs, reasonably decent lenses, diopter and IPD support, dual bays in it. The specs make it sound like these are going to be pretty spectacular. I like the case. But if that's the point I'm getting to find positives, you know I'm struggling. The fit isn't great. If I try and put these on, hopefully you can see there's quite a gap at the sides. Interestingly, there isn't any kind of supports or anything to help push these pads out for those who have a narrower brow. But if you have that very wide face, these would probably fit fine. The manual is useless. I do wish that Chinese manufacturers in particular got a native English speaking person to kind of run through it and just thought about what it is that you actually want to see. When you power it up and plug the module in, you have to make sure the power is turned on at the bottom, and by default it's set to HDMI 2D input. Why? These are FPV goggles. To change the mode, you have to press and hold what's called the menu button on the goggles, but the mode button in the manual. The lack of thought on the module supports and the covers I'm not a fan of, because as you can see the module just sits out at the side. It isn't held on, it just kind of moves around. I would probably have to use some double-sided foam or something like that, but they're gonna get knocked, damaged, stuck out. It's just a bloody silly place to put the module without some kind of cover. Although I suppose you could 3D print your own one, but these are pretty standard things now. They're all compatible with, Fat Shark Start goggles. One of my sets is behind me. Why not think about that? And like some other manufacturer has, include a cover or two that will actually fit. The optics, as I said, seem okay, apart from the fact that they don't work for my eyes. In terms of the view, there's a very small window in the middle of the lenses that you have to be right behind in order to see each. Weirdly, I can see clearly on both sides if I close one eye and open the other, so I can get that diopter in the right place, I can get the focus perfect. It's just when I open both my eyes, they just don't meet up. Obviously, no modules, no antennas, no battery, even though there's one on the case, so be careful of that. You're going to have to order all that stuff as well. So although the goggles look relatively value for money on the website, you're going to have to add all those things in. I'm not a fan of the big mirrored surface at the front. When I was looking at them on the listing, the way the picture makes it look is it makes it look like that is a white piece, and I'd probably preferred that than this slightly wacky mirrored version that's on the front. So for me, these goggles are a perfect example of why it is so tricky for manufacturers to make really good FPV goggles, and why in every review that you ever see on YouTube, they're always comparing them with Fat Sharks, because Fat Sharks might not have all the latest and greatest technology, but they just kind of work. It's also a great illustration that sometimes looking at one review on YouTube isn't going to give you the full picture. If there are minor variations along a general theme with all the reviews, then that consensus speaks to a reasonable consistency in the product, and the differences of opinion are down to the particular biases of the reviews, because all reviews are subjective, right? However, when you have such broad differing views as myself and people like Bruce not being fans, and other channels talking about what amazing goggles they are, then for me that is definitely a huge cause for concern. So for me, this is a hard no. I think if you are looking for FPV goggles, I wouldn't buy these. Check out my Kit Picks 2020 video. I'll put a link down below for the ones that I would recommend over something like this. Goggles are an investment in the hobby. You will buy a set of goggles and potentially be flying with them for 3, 4, 5 years. You get ones that fit, that work. You can upgrade the modules in them if you really want to. They're like battery chargers. They are like radios. You buy them once, you buy the best ones you can get, and then you stick with them for a while. If you're going to do that, I would go with a manufacturer who knows what they're doing, not something like this. Thank you for watching my video and watching right to the very end. If you want to find out what I'm currently working on, you can follow me on social media by searching for Painless360 in the usual places. If you'd like to become part of the inner circle, then you can become a Patreon. Details are in the description and you get lots of additional benefits. Check out the playlist section on the channel too. I organise all of my videos into playlists and it's called something like Introduction to or for Beginners. All of the content is aimed so that you can start at the very beginning and it teaches you that subject, starting with simple principles and moving up to teach you everything you need to know.